Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Max Story.
All right. Thanks for stopping by the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast today. Today we're on part 5 of 30 in my Blue Collar Leadership Leading from the Front Lines series, which is focused on really my best-selling book, Blue Collar Leadership. And today we're going to talk a little bit about Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is titled, There Is an I in Team. And growing up and actually through my adult life, I've always heard, it's just a saying out there, you've probably heard it yourself, but you always hear that, or I always heard, there is no I in team. And what they're talking about is we have to work together. There is no I in team. It's kind of common sense and it's self-explanatory what that means. But Chapter 5 in my book, Blue Collar Leadership, is titled, There Is an I in Team, because I look at it from a different perspective. Because I believe every team is made up of individuals. And if we get the individuals right, the team's going to be right. A lot of times, leaders will ask me, they'll ask me or me and Rhea, they'll say to you, do you do anything related to team building? And I kind of tell them this story about there is an I in team. I tell them every single thing we do is about team building. But I also mention, if you talk about, do we do rope courses? Do we catch people falling off a table? Do we do all these team-based type events? No, we don't do that. But what we do is work on growing and developing individuals. Because what I know is you get the individual right, the team will be right. You can validate this for yourself. If you've been on part of a high-performance team, if a high-performance team member joins the team, you don't have to go and do any group training with them to be effective with them. If they're ready to go, if they're a high-impact team player and they lead themselves well, and you guys already have a high-performance team, they'll fit right in and everybody will just make it happen. It's just the way it works. If that person doesn't lead themselves well, they're not good at being working well with others and on a team, then it doesn't matter how well your team has been developed. When they come on board, they're not going to fit right in. And the only way they're ever going to fit in is you got to grow and develop the individual. So that's why I say there is an I in team. So I want to share a quote with you from Paul Bear Bryant. He used to be the head football coach at the University of Alabama. A lot of people who are into sports know who he is, but even if you don't, the quote I'm going to share is pretty cool. So Coach Bryant says, I'm just a plow hand from Arkansas, but I've learned how to hold a team together, how to lift some men up, how to calm others down, until finally they've got one heartbeat together as a team. There's always just 3 things I say. If anything goes bad, I did it. If anything goes semi-good, then we did it. If anything goes real good, they did it. That's all it takes to get people to win. That's a pretty powerful quote there from Bear Bryant, full of nuggets on how to be a high-impact team player. And he's saying that as a leader. And what I mean by that is the leader of the team is also a member of the team. And that's what high-impact leaders know. They know they're just another member. They bring experiences. They bring thoughts and ideas. They also are willing to work well with others. They don't want the credit. They will give the team credit. And that's what makes up a high-impact team. And if you're really interested in this subject about growing and developing high-impact team players, my newest book, which released not too long ago, it's actually titled Blue Collar Leadership and Teamwork, 30 Traits of High-Impact Players. And that book is the same as this book I'm covering now in this 30-part series relative to the layout. It's also 30 chapters, 3 pages each. You can read a chapter in 6-7 minutes. And so if you're interested in that, you might want to pick up the paperback copy or go find it on audible.com. It's also an audio book, and it's also an ebook. But that book is filled with chapters on how to help you know how to be a high-impact team player. Or if you're trying to grow and develop a high-impact team, the traits that are covered in these 30 chapters in Blue Collar Leadership and Teamwork are traits like be growth-oriented, be trustworthy, be humble, be responsible, be positive, be flexible, be focused. 30 chapters like that. Basically, they all start with be, and it's how I need to be if I'm going to be a high-impact team player. So that's a different book, but I did want to mention that to you. So back to chapter 5, there is an I in team. There's nothing holding you back but you. And my friend Donovan Weldon, he was the former CEO and owner of Donovan Industrial Service in Orange, Texas, out near Beaumont. And he says something, and I actually quoted it and put it in chapter 5. And Donovan's quote goes like this. He says, "The only person between you and success is you. Move. The only person between you and failure is you. Stand firm." So those are some pretty strong words. And basically what he's saying is the only thing stopping you is you. So keep going. And the only thing between you and failure is you. Stand firm. That means don't give up. Make it happen. So understanding your role as a team member is a must. And what happens is those on the front lines often underestimate themselves because they can't see the big picture. If you're in an entry-level position, I'm telling you, you can't see the big picture. You have to trust leadership. And if you're a leader of a team of frontline folks, you've got to help them see the bigger picture. And even you, as a frontline formal authority leader, you may not see the big picture. So they can't see the value they have to offer all the time. And far too often, the leader of the frontline team members isn't a high-impact leader. Most of the time, they've never had any leadership development or personal growth. So they're lacking, just like the front line is lacking when it comes to personal growth and development. And they might not understand the big picture either. So quite often, bosses are often given a title without any formal development. So remember, the reason I'm talking about the boss on the team is because they're also one of the eyes in the team. They're an individual. So you got to understand there are many official and unofficial teams in an organization. They're very dynamic and constantly changing. When most of us think of the team we're on, we immediately think of our peers, the ones on the same crew, in the same department, working on the same job together. For us, most of the time, that's our core team. But you have to know that only represents the smallest team we're on. So we also support other teams too, and others support our team. That's a higher level of teamwork. It's part of that bigger picture. And so the more we can understand that, the more options we're going to have as we grow and develop our influence. So when we choose to contribute beyond our immediate team, we're choosing to be part of the bigger team. And often this only requires a choice to do so. And it's your choice to get involved in other areas your choice to get involved in other areas sends a clear message to those high impact leaders. Because high impact leaders are looking for people to be involved. They're looking for people to take responsibility, to do more than is required, to do things better than required, faster than required, sooner than they're required. So when you play tall, you choose to contribute because you know it'll increase your influence and your impact on the front lines. If you want to play tall, you should want to be noticed, to be selected, to volunteer, to share information, to accept more responsibility, and ultimately to make a contribution at a higher level. As a direct result of your choice to step up, your influence will increase with the high impact leaders, because you're demonstrating you can lead from the front lines and will be seen and respected by all the high impact leaders as a fellow high impact leader. Because remember, leadership, it's not about title, position, rank, and authority. It's about your character. So high impact leaders, whether they have a position of authority or whether they don't, but especially if they do, they're still going to notice you and see you as a high impact leader, even if no one reports to you directly. Because your actions are not going to go unnoticed when you start becoming a high impact team player. But when you do the opposite, when you play small, you choose not to contribute because you don't want to do more. If your goal is to coast until payday, that won't be a secret you can keep. When you make every effort not to be noticed, not to be selected, not to volunteer, not to share information, not to accept responsibility, and ultimately not to contribute, I promise you, you're going to be noticed. So that's the two sides of the coins. Somebody who's wanting to play tall, somebody who's wanting to play small. Either way, you're going to be noticed. But what are you going to be noticed for? What is your behavior going to be? As a direct result of your choice not to step up, your influence is going to decrease. Your influence on the front lines and with your leaders will be diminished. You're more likely to become reactive and frustrated, blaming others for what you have chosen. So blaming others will further reduce your influence. And see, I've said this in a lot of my podcast episodes, but you first make your choices, then your choices make you. And the question is, do I want to play tall or do I want to play small? I can't listen to those negative folks who are playing small. I got to figure out, where do I want to go? And I close that chapter 5, there is an I in team. I close that with one of my favorite quotes, and it's from Peyton Manning. And I'll end with this for today's episode. But Peyton says, the most valuable player is the one that makes the most players valuable. And again, last episode we talked about common sense. And that quote from Peyton Manning, all it takes to understand that is common sense. The most valuable player is the one that makes the most players valuable. But doing that is not common practice. And the reason it's not common practice is because there are a lot of insecure people out there. So I don't want to make others around me better. If I'm insecure, I'm afraid they'll take my job or get credit for something that I might have done, or get noticed when I'm trying to get noticed, or they may get a raise when I'm trying to get a raise. But uncommon sense says I'm going to help people be better. And the more people I can help be better and become more valuable, the more valuable I'm going to become. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.